Hi, I'm Dave from boinaband.com and welcome to day 2 of the 7-day song on Dirty Dubstep. Yesterday in day 1 we made a powerful driving beat. Today in day 2 we'll be attempting to recreate the sound of a giant robot tearing open the space-time continuum, otherwise known as the bass. So we'll get a combinator, name it space-time tear. Let's just go for bass. And inside it, right click, create line mixer 6:2, followed by Thor, initialize Thor, open it up with show programmer, fasten your safety belt and say your last goodbyes. Make another analog oscillator, followed by a wavetable. Make sure analog oscillator 1 is on the sawtooth mode, take it an octave up. The second one we'll have as a square wave. Be sure to move this pulse width knob here to the middle, so it's not a thin pulse wave, it's a nice big square wave. And the wavetable turned down to synced sine, and we'll move that an octave up as well. I'll just add in some notes now, which I'll explain later. Okay, so those notes are in now, and I've soloed out the bass, so let's take a listen to what we've got if we run these two through. Wow, that's pretty much finished. I don't think we need to do any more work. I'm lying. Turn the amp envelope sustain up to full so you don't lose any volume over time. And it's not really sounding much like a dirty bass now, is it? First, let's get the tone so you can hear it before we start morphing it with envelopes. A good place to start is the wrapper, yo? So turn on the shaper, turn it down to wrap with a W. And if we bring up the drive, take a listen to what it does to the sound. See, a lot more harsh. Make sure you bring that drive nice and high up into about the 80s, and that's in terms of parameter value, not musical context. As far as I'm aware, Wham never ventured into brutal dubstep. And this violently distorts the signal, giving the first signs of a growl to the bass. Let's add a bit more of a robotic metallic overtone now. Take things into Decepticon territory. In the modulation bus routing section, which is this bit down here, link oscillator 2 to oscillator 1 frequency modulation. And this allows for frequency modulation, which is a great technique for making horrific noises. It modulates one frequency by another, so let's test it out by bringing the amount up. I'll just send the first oscillator through so you can hear it clearly. So just on its own, it sounds like this. And as we bring it up, nice and painful. I like it around that 35 mark, but feel free to try varying the amount for some different tones. Okay, so if we put those back through, we have our basic tone. So let's get it moving. In the Show Programmer section, up here in the combinator, click Thor, and here where it says Rotary 1, change the target to Filter 1 frequency. Make sure the filter envelope in the filter is down to 0, and then listen to how it sounds with this envelope I copied and pasted in. Starting to sound a lot more interesting now. Let's turn the chorus on, bring the dry wet down, just to under a quarter. This just adds a tiny amount of width to the sound, and it's time to leave Thor alone for a bit. It's best not to show it too much attention, or it'll end up on My Super Sweet 16 making an embarrassment out of itself and ruining any chance it had for its friends and family to have any respect for it in the future. So, right click and create an M-class equalizer after Thor, and this will shape the sound before it goes into the painful part of the signal chain. You'll see why it's painful soon. So let's gently boost the highs to make it a bit brighter. So turn on the high shelf and just boost it a couple of decibels. And we're going to have a little peak around 2.8 kilohertz. If we just bring that up about 5 decibels and widen it. If we take a listen without and with, just brightens it up. Now let's start to do some drastic stuff. In param 1, take the gain fully down. Now, in the combinators programmer again, select the EQ, and for rotary 1, change the target to Effect, param 1 frequency. Now this is going to make it wobble with that frequency, adding another modulating element to the sound. And now it's time to bring the pain, hardcore from the brain. So inside my astral plane, we want some stereo images. However, these aren't for imaging any stereo today. They have, if we load them up, let's make a few. These convenient solo sections that filter out anything above the desired frequency, making them perfect building blocks for a multi-band distortion unit. Reason doesn't have any VST inputs, but if you spend a bit of time figuring it out, you can pretty much make something similar to 90% of the VSTs that exist with the tools we've got. So let's get to work. Before the stereo imager, it's a good idea to make a spider audio merger and splitter. If we look at the back and get rid of all these inputs and outputs, and take the EQ output up into the splitter, take one output of the splitter into the mixer, and one into the stereo imager, the first stereo imager. That way we can blend the original signal with the distorted signals we're going to make, giving us a lot of control over the final sound and allowing it to be more well-rounded. So if we look at the front again, hit tab to look at the back and the front, we'll change this right down to about 340-ish hertz. And the second one, we're going to take up to, around 1.8 kilohertz, just for starting points. Then turn both images to solo low band mode. Just to show you how the splitting works, we're going to take the first image's audio output into the mixer. That'll be our low band. Then we're going to take this separate out on high band mode into the other imager. Take the output from that into the mixer. That's our middle band. And then once again, separate out high band and take that into the mixer as well. And that's our high band. So if we take a listen and solo them, here's our low band on its own. Bring in the mid and the highs. And if we compare that to the original source sound, see, it sounds exactly the same. That's because we've split it. However, we want to distort each band effectively to give them some added tonality. That's the whole point of this. I played around for a while on the low band and decided it was too messy in the end. Low frequencies are notoriously difficult to distort nicely. So let's put Scream 4 units on the mid and high bands of our multi-band distortion unit. I'll do that now. So the output for the mid, go into that one, then into the mixer. And the output for the high into this one, and into the mixer. If we solo out the mid band for a second, I'm going to go for some tube distortion with half P1, and we're going to take the P2 down a little bit as well. No cut or body. Take a listen. Makes a nice crunchy mid-range tone. And for the high band, if we solo that out, take off the cut and body again, I'll add a bit more piercingness if we just bring up the presence on this default distortion setting. Now let's try mixing it. We're going to mute the lower sound. You can try mixing it in, but I think it's a little less muddy without it. Try taking the mids up a bit. And those highs down a bit. And take a listen to it without the original signal. And then with. It really helps to tie it together. Now, a few more bits before the end. We're going to right-click on the mixer and make ourselves an EQ. Let's move it up. Make sure it's not a send. Take it out from the master out to the input. Audio output to the combinator. And this EQ is so we can mold the sound after the distortion. A slight boost in the mids will be a nice place to start. So if we bring that to about 450, about 5 decibels, nice and wide, 1.5. So I'll take a listen to that. And we're going to have a cut. Yeah, just leave it there, the default around 900. And we're going to have quite a considerable cut. Again, nice and wide. So just boost the lower mids a bit, make it a bit crunchier in that tone, that area. Just makes it a bit clearer. Then we're going to make a maximizer. On the maximizer, we're going to boost the input gain a bit, then fully soft clip it. So turn on the soft clip and take the amount to full. And this gives it more distorted warmth. And make sure you turn off the limiter. Remember, if you don't have the limiter off, then the soft clip isn't really going to work. Just think, if you're going out in a random American suburb smashing letterboxes out of the window of your car with a baseball bat, you wouldn't be able to cause any destruction if someone else had already gone around gently laying them all flat on the floor. So that's the first bass done. If we take a listen. Let's put in the beat as well for some context. Awesome sauce, some quality robo bass there. Tune in for part 2, where I'll be making the second bass of the song, a nice wide hollow sounding bass, and I'll chuck in how to make one of those basses too.